right, so this is going to be LexTalk episode 1 with my first guest. Please say your name.
Hello, my name is Jeff, and my Korean name is Hyunkang. Nice to meet you guys.
Hyunkang. Yeah, so Hyunkang is talking to me from Korea right now. It's, what the hell time is it? It's 1 a.m. for him, so this might be a little bit tough. But here we go. Today's topic, we're just going to talk about Hyunkang's favorite player in the LCK, BDD.
Yeah, BDD. Now the mid laner of gen.g esports in LCK.
And the guy who's about to win his 4th Player of the Game award. Yeah. So we just wanted to talk about the legacy of BDD today.
Yeah.
So for starters, do you want to go over the debut of BDD, Hyunkang?
When BDD got debut, I think like he was mid laner of CJ in 2016. He was pretty okay at the moment, but like because of the fact that his team like fucked up kind of, so his real potential didn't show up at the moment. But when he met the right guys at the right moment in 2017, he finally bursted out his full potential, I think.
Yeah, for BDD, the expectations were really high for him because he was replacing Coco, who in 2015 had definitely been the clear-cut second best mid laner in the LCK and the only actual rival of Faker throughout the whole season. So BDD had really big shoes to fill with a significantly worse roster than what Coco had. So in 2016, CJantis picked up Sky to be their placeholder mid laner while they essentially waited for BDD to turn 17. So BDD turned 17. The team had, I think, something not great, like a 3-5 record or so, but they had been doing better than they expected. Kramer was having a pretty good spring season. Madlife had a bit of a resurgence, and BDD came into the roster at the right time, and they thought he was about to save the organization. And that didn't really happen. They ended up in, I believe, 8th place in spring. Yeah, 8th place in spring with an 8-10 record to end it. BDD didn't really have a significantly better win record than Sky did. And his statistics weren't very different, but when you watched him play in the server, you could actually tell there was a pretty big difference in talent. BDD, when he showed up, was a massive playmaker that Sky wasn't. Sky was just that guy who would do his job. And BDD was making plays, but unfortunately, he was making plays for a team that couldn't really follow up with him. All right. Do you think that's a pretty fair assessment of where BDD was in 2016?
Well, actually, what I think about BDD is his real career actually started after 2017, where he met like some of great players like Prey or Smap, and they actually ended up getting the like title of LCK. So
Praying Khan.
actually, yeah, playing Khan definitely. Actually, yeah, I can tell you guys honestly that I was not a real fan in 2016, but like I became a huge fan of BDD when he joined like Kingzone and Longzhu Gaming. Yeah.
So yeah, in 2017, when BDD joined Longzhu, it was a little bit weird because again, here he is replacing Coco. So he followed Coco twice. But in 2017, they have the story. All the players joked about it, where he was meditating and powering up. He didn't play a single game of spring. He was on the bench the whole time. They unleash BDD upon the world in 2017 summer, and suddenly Longzhu goes from being a fringe, maybe we can make the playoffs team, to the best team in LCK. And during that time, it was very interesting because there was a very clear-cut top 4 teams: KT, SKT, Samsung, and then Longzhu. And prior to that, it was just T1, Samsung, and KT were just way ahead of the pack. But as soon as Longzhu got good, suddenly you had this really interesting rock, paper, scissors dynamic. But it became rock, paper, scissors, dragon. T1, so SKT, beat KT every single time they played. KT beat Samsung every single time they played. Samsung kept beating SKT. And then Longzhu went 1-1 with everybody. And a big part of that was the consistency of just having BDD enter the team and kind of change the dynamic. All right. So let's get started on the legacy of BDD circa 2017 summer. So we come into 2017 summer, and from that point forward, he wins 4 Player of the Game awards. So here's where we're at. All right. So I want you to share your thoughts on the Longzhu King Zone version of BDD.
First of all, Longzhu King Zone's period was definitely one of the biggest parts for BDD to make his career, because with the help of BDD King Zone and Longzhu members, he was able to get his player of the game, now player of the game, but it was actually more MVP of the season for the first time. And from what I think about the moment BDD in 2017 Longzhu, I was surprised to see his really high KDA.
So that's still the record, actually, is the LCK KDA record was set by BDD in the 2017 summer season, and it still stands, but Showmaker's about to beat it. But it's lasted 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, and it was interesting to watch him playing Galio. And normally Galio is more really stable champion, so it's hard to die, but it also makes kill really hard. So it means that you're not gonna have a high kill rate or death rate as well.
Yeah.
But the thing about BDD was he used Galio so well that he made really high kill rate with very low death rate, which combined made him having really high KDA, 2 digits KDA.
Yeah, it was 11.31.
Yeah.
So there's only been, since the LCK started, only Chovy is the only other guy to break 10 KDA. And that was the season where he had 150 KDA at one point. When he was Mr. 100 KDA, and even Mr. 100 KDA Chovy did not break Longzhu BDD's record. So BDD's record is 11.31. Chovy's is 10.7. And right now, I think Showmaker's sitting on a 13.48, but I don't have the numbers in front of me. But I think as of yesterday's game, when they beat T1, I believe Showmaker's down to a 13.48. That sounds right.
Yeah, and one more thing about BDD's signature character is Talia. Talia at the moment. Yeah. So he actually preferred roaming. So he picked certain characters that he could make roam easily, like Galio or Talia, with their champions ultimate skill. He was able to roam and just made his team win. Yeah, it was a big plus.
So do you think that in his career, BDD's kind of shown himself to be the best roaming LCK mid laner?
During his prime time, King Zone and Longzhu period, I can tell you that he was by far the best out of LCK mid laners. Of course, you can argue
in
that,
regards to roaming, not just the best, but in regards to what he was doing. You mean, right?
Yeah, right.
Just before somebody gets down our throat and says, "Hey, Faker was pretty good back then." Yes, Faker was very good, but BDD was a better roaming mage player from the mid lane. That was more BDD's bread and butter.
And one thing you guys have to keep in mind is that BDD's roaming style is not just sacrificing his lane, but he also dominated his lane and make his make all mid lanes minions like go forward to enemy's turret, and while the enemy has to like get the minion, like he actually made a time to do roaming. It was a big point.
Yeah. So you would say that BDD is a master of the shove mid and roam playstyle, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So if I had to identify BDD, I would say if I had to think of his closest comparison, I would be thinking of Dade on Samsung Blue in 2014, when
Mm.
Dade would take Ghost and Flash every game, take a roaming slash team fighting mage, shove mid lane, and go fight somewhere. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what BDD does. BDD doesn't put out crazy damage numbers year after year. What he does is he has insane assist rates. He'll usually lead the league in kills. He'll be one of the top kill players. He'll have crazy kill participation, and he'll have crazy CS numbers. He just takes his mage, shoves mid lane, immediately goes roam somewhere, has a fight, wins the fight. Suddenly, his team's ahead.
Yeah, right. Mm. And so like I sometimes think like Diamond Gaming in 2020 summer, like it's like the like reverse of Kingjon or Longju period in 2018, because Longju was like notorious for their like really strong top half.
Yeah.
Khan, Peanut, and BDD's combination, it was over. Like even T1 couldn't be against like Longju or King John's top half.
Yeah.
Top half was that strong. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So you're seeing similarities in 2020 summer Damwon that you saw
yeah,
when you were watching 2017, or are you? Oh, you were talking about Peanuts. So 2018 spring Kingzone when they
y-
also went 16-2.
yeah,
Yeah, I think they
exactly.
are pretty eerily similar. In fact, this is the first team that didn't have Prey on it that kind of had that similar play style, where it's very top focused, very strong mid lane shove, supportive AD carry, and then you have a mage playing support player. Although I would say the Barrel's a little bit different than Gorilla. I think that Barrel is more in a low level version of Mad Life
Mhm.
versus that mage style that Gorilla played. He's a little bit more of a playmaker, but
Yeah.
it's pretty similar. Like Ghost feels a lot like a very young Prey. Right.
Hmm.
I'm very interested to see where he goes. I don't know if he has the same kind of leadership qualities that Prey does, but I'm very interested in seeing how he goes. And Canyon seems like a less stupid Peanut. Like Peanut was always a incredible mechanical jungler. No one would ever take that away from him. But it feels like Canyon has very similar level of mechanics, but better decision making than Peanut does. And
Yeah.
Peanut won the LCK 3 times. So, hey man, if that's my comparison, oh, I'm a better version of Peanut. Oh, well, I'll take that. Peanut's a 3-time LCK champion. Peanut's an MSI champion. That's pretty.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good comparison. Like I wouldn't be offended about that. Right? I would
Yeah.
say that he's pretty similar to Peanut. I don't know if I would consider him better in a historical sense, but I'd say he's very comparable to what Peanut's level was at in 2018 spring. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. This team really reminds me of Longzhu actually. Yeah, although BDD's a much better roamer than Showmaker is.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think about KT's BDD? What do you think KT got out of him? Do you think that BDD was underrated during his time on KTrolster in 2019 in the supposed super team with Smeb and Score, which eventually ended up having Prey as well?
Yeah. Well, thinking of like KT period, it was actually nonsense because like in KT 20 like 19, there were like full of like top players, Prey, SMAP, and BDD. But the problem was they
Score.
they didn't they didn't mingle well. I don't know why, but for some reasons, like there like had been some like problems about team fight or lane page, except BDD's lane page. I mean, like even though like KT 2019, where like KT wasn't getting the best like result, like his lane page like stat was still amazing. I mean, BDD's lane page stat.
I would have argued that he was probably still the best in lane mid laner during that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I do you think that it would be safe to say that in 2019, even though like two of those guys had just won a 2018 championship in LCK, Smeb and Score were reigning champions. Prey and BDD actually won the 2018 spring season. So in 2019, you're like, okay, well, four of these players are champions from last year. They couldn't have fallen off that much. Do you think that it's safe to say that BDD or that Smeb and Score and Prey kind of weren't the same guys that next year, in a similar vein to when you look at Barcelona right now after getting thrashed by Bayern Munich recently in the Champions League? You think PK is the same guy that he was 5 years ago? Like, it still says PK on the back of his jersey, right? Like, Score's nameplate was still there, and Smeb's nameplate was still there. Prey's nameplate was still there. But when you actually watch their play on the server, that wasn't Smeb. That was just a guy with his name. It didn't feel like Smeb. So when you look at that, I think the name value of that KTrolster roster was a lot bigger than the actual quality of the team. It looked like Smeb and Score had kind of dropped off quite a bit, and Prey had dropped off a lot. Obviously, that was part of why he retired. He didn't feel involved anymore. And then he came back after a brief retirement to come save KTrolster, which didn't end up happening.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think it was more of a case of BDD was still good, but a lot of the high name value players just kind of weren't themselves anymore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say 2019 was the season of rising rookies. You see, like Diamond Gaming or Griffins, like their like amazing performance, kind of like made
Even Sandbox.
even Sandbox. Their like amazing performance kind of made like superstars like hasty, like uh, like
Very
yeah,
quickly developed superstars. Like, these rookies
yeah,
came in and they didn't come in like MVP did when MVP was a good team and ESC ever was a good rookie team, and those guys would come in and they would get like seventh, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Sandbox and Dom1 came in and immediately were top 5 teams. It
Yeah,
was
so
superstars.
KT in 2019, like their like general losing pattern was they just couldn't like stand the lane page. I mean, like even before 15 minutes gone, like the game was almost over, which means BDD couldn't do anything to help other two lanes.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations of it's great and all to pass the ball, but that Kobe Bryant quote where he says, "If I pass the ball and that guy misses, well, what was the point of passing the ball?" Right? If BDD roams to top lane, it Smeb dies anyway. It doesn't really matter. And I think that was the position that he was in 2019, where it seemed like there was a very clear changing in the guard in the LCK during that time period, right? Like, that was when Nugri came up, that was Summit coming up.
Yeah.
Keen had really burst on last year, but Keen in 2019 was also a very elite top laner. So suddenly Smeb goes from, okay, I'm the best along with Khan and Keen. We're all kind of like that A tier. But now, now there's this Nuggery guy. Now there's this Summit guy. And I'm not quite as good as I was last year. And now I go from arguably first through third to I'm not even, am I fifth? Am I the fifth best top laner? Am I sixth? Holy crap. Is Rascal better than me now? Like, suddenly, oh, okay, like I'm falling down the totem pole. I can't carry anymore. So when BDD was coming to Khan in 2018 and Khan was up 3 kills to nothing, and then BDD gets you an assist and helps you kill your turret, it's like, wicked, great. Khan's up 5-0. We're gonna smash the game. But in 2019, it did feel like when he went to help Smeb or he went down to help the bottom lane and they would just get slaughtered. Why did they even come?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really the dark timeline of BDD. So let's talk about this new Gen G era of BDD
Yeah.
and where he is now. Do you think he's back? Do you think he's as good as he was in 2017 and 18?
Yeah, right.
He's
Yeah.
the reigning MVP. He's the reigning MVP. Of the league.
Right. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So since by the time he gets 2020 summer POG points, like
He's already locked it in because Showmaker can only tie him.
Yeah, he
So
will be carrying a year MVP 2 times in a row. You know, so
yeah.
it means that he's still really competent mid laner. He's a really competent mid laner among like great LCK mid laners, including Chovy, Faker, and Showmaker. And I think, yeah, in 2020 spring, where gen.g's like overall performance was not that well made, even though like the gen.g's like performance was not perfect, because of BDD's existence, like gen.g was able to get the first
#1 spot
rank, yeah, on regular season. So yeah, I can like definitely tell you that BDD's prime time has come back.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at them last year, I felt like Klid was very good. I've never thought that Rascal was an elite player. I always thought he was just pretty good. He's somebody that I would like on a team in the same vein that I, in 2017, really enjoyed Cuve on Samsung because he understands that his role is to be the weak side top laner, and he's very good at being a weak side top laner. He's very good in the one-on-one, and he survives well in a 1 versus 2. Rascal's not somebody who throws his life away. Versus like if you look like somebody like Nagari, who I'm a massive fan of, Nagari will just suicide jump your turret. He does not care. If he's the weak side top laner, he's just gonna rush your turret anyway. Right? Rascal's gonna play safe. So I kind of felt though that BDD has a pretty good niche in this team as the guy. So he's very much the man of this team. Whereas in 2018 in particular, in 2017 as well, there was just some debate on who was the carry of the team, on whether the carry was Khan or the carry was BDD. Who was the best player on the team? Was it Prey? Was Prey the best player on the team in 2017? Was Khan the best? Was BDD the best? Right? I think that in 2020, when you look at the gen.g roster, it's BDD. He's the best. It's just him. It's BDD. There's no actual debate on this. Klid is pretty good. Ruler's a very good AD carry. Like, nobody thinks they're better than BDD though. Like, he's the star of the team. Right? And they're going as far as they can on his back, and he's got 13 player of the games right now, and they're in 3rd place. And this is a very competitive season where, what are they, 12-4? 12-4, like, you could normally win. You could win the LCK with this record. Right? Yeah, so what are your thoughts on BDD in this split in particular? So not just spring, although if you want to address spring, you can talk about spring too.
So BDD's like performance stays similar, but I think like Chovy and Showmaker's performance went up recently so high that like some people might think that maybe BDD's performance is like going down a little bit, but I don't think so. He's still doing his like absolute best, and when he's picking like his signature champ Zoe or Azure, like as a fan of gen.g, we can like tell you that like the game is for gen.g. Like gen.g fan know that like whenever BDD gets like his favorite champ, yeah, we know that we're gonna win. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's got a 75% win rate on his ear in 12 games. So he's 9-3 on him, and he's 5-0 on Twisted Fate and 4-0 on Akali. Yeah. What do those champions have in common? Well, they roam around the map and make plays. That's what BDD does. He's just a career playmaker. That's always been his style. It's not to have the highest damage in the history of the game. It's just to be a guy who makes big plays. Yeah, actually, I was just looking. So right now, gen.g's 13-4. If they beat KT, or not KT, Afrika is their last set. So if they beat Afrika and they're 14-4, I believe that's the best win rate of a team to place 3rd ever in LCK. 14-4 normally wins the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
the only teams who've done better than that are the 17-1 SKT in 2015 summer. What is it? I think Ku Tigers went 12-2, or GE Tigers went 12-2 in that first spring season. I think they were 12-2. Right, so that's a pretty good record, but it's not quite the same. So there's the 2015 summer SKT who went 17-1. There's 2016 spring Rocks Tigers who went 16-2. There's the 15-3 Rocks Tigers. There's the 16-win T1, and then summer of that year, 13-5 wins the league. Right, that's Longzhu. So, I mean, if gen.g goes 14-4, that's better than Longzhu did when they won the split. um, then Kingzone goes 16-2, and then I believe the next split, KT wins the split at 13-5 or 14-4. So again, gen.g would be top 1 or 2 there. I think it was 14-4 for KT and Griffin, and the other two went 13-3, but it might have been a 4-way split for 13-5. So there's several splits where this is the first place finish. I mean, last split, like gen.g is about to have the same record that they had last split, where they were first. But
Yeah.
this is a historic race. This is Liverpool versus Manchester City. Getting 98 points, right? Like this is the same thing where you have this crazy race where there's these two teams who are utterly dominant, and a regularly dominant team doesn't even look special. In the same vein that in spring of 2019, when Griffin was just dominating the league, SKT quietly had a 14-4 record. It was the same thing where it's like this is an amazing season. This is a top 10 season of all time, and nobody's talking about it because Griffin was at one point 12-0 and like 22-1 or something in match score. It was insane. Or 24-2, I think, was their record at one point. It was insane. So BDD is obviously having a very good performance, and the team is still having a very good performance. Third in this split, I think, is still pretty good. Yeah. So I have a little thing for you. BDD. So first of all, BDD, since he's come into the league, not since he came into the league. We're gonna talk. We're gonna ignore his rookie season, and we're gonna ignore the split that he didn't play. So since 2017, when he became a starter for a legitimate team, BDD has the most MVP points from that point in time. So out of every player in the league, and there's guys who've won more games than him, right? Faker's won more games than him. He has more MVP points than any other player. And in his career, he's now, I believe, the third highest MVP point earner in LCK history. Only Smeb has one more player of the game than him, and Faker has 13 more player of the games, but he's also played, I think, 200 more matches. So Faker has 270 not 270 wins. He has more than that. He had 270 LCK wins as of spring. All right, BDD is up to just under 200 LCK wins now, and he's in striking distance of Faker's MVP points total. And he has the highest percentage chance in a win of any player in league history of earning the MVP or the player of the game. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing like achievement, you know. He has already gotten like 3 times MVP regular season awards, right? And he's about to get one more. In combined, like he will be having 4 times like MVP regular season holders.
Yeah, he's
And
already
you
got the
know,
record.
yeah. And even Faker has gotten only two times MVP regular awards.
Yeah.
So when we only look at this point of view, we can argue that BDD's ability to get MVP points is even better than Faker, who is definitely the best mid laner of all time.
No, I think nobody would ever debate. I mean, unless we get 20 more years of League of Legends, I'm pretty sure Faker will forever be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah,
But
let's say
when you look at the greatest regular season player of all time, BDD's up there. And BDD is probably the guy who was the most obvious star of his team for his whole career. Right? Like if you look at his
yeah.
career wins, so BDD has 197 career regular season wins and 73 player of the games. So he's got a 37% chance that if his team wins the game, he wins the player of the game. Which the only other person to ever have a higher percentage than that is Someday with 40%, but that was because Someday only played 4 splits. So that definitely helped. And KT played a very clear, tailored style towards Someday every game. So those two had a very comparable percentage, but BDDs played on 4 different teams, because this includes his CJ and his era. So he's been on 4 different teams, and he's still the star every time, no matter what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have something that I'd like to tell you. So I know you like this because you're a big fan of BDD, but I would say there's an actual argument to be made that since 2017 summer, so ignoring the spring, since his debut on Longzhu, the BDD is probably the most successful, best mid laner in the LCK from 2017 summer onwards.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you look at it, BDD's won the regular season 3 times during that period. Faker's won it, I don't think any times. I think he's won it 0 times since that, because he won the 2017 spring, but BDD wasn't there. So from 2017 summer, BDD's won the regular season 3 times, once with Longzhu, once with Kingzone, once with Gen.g. He has won 3 MVPs, and he won a Player of the Game title last season, and he's about to win another Player of the Game title. All right. He's won 2 championships, made 3 finals, and 4 semifinal appearances so far. For comparison, Faker's won 1 more championship, has made 1 more final, and has had 1 more semifinal appearance. But Faker didn't have a KT team like that. Those T1 teams have been pretty fire the whole time, right? I mean, the 2019 Dream Team was an unbelievable roster, and they were 4th in the regular season. If BDD had a team like that, I have a hard time believing that he would have got 4th in the regular season. All right, so where do you come down on that? Do you think that maybe BDD could be the best mid laner in the LCK during that period of time?
Well, like
overall, not best every split.
Yeah, overall, I can argue that, like, because Faker has been supported a lot of great team players, great superstars, including Khan, Teddy, because Clit. Clit. T1 has a lot of money, and they have power to buy really fancy and expensive players. Whereas BDD before he joined gen.g, his team didn't have big money to employ good players.
This is the first time he's been on a team that actually had some real cash.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would argue that, I mean, we've already seen this. BDD is the highest % chance of being the player of the game in league history, outside of Someday, on a specific team specifically tailored for him, right?
Yeah.
So over a longer period of time, BDD has significantly more player of the games. He's 3rd all time. He's 1 player of the game behind Smeb, so he might tie Smeb or beat Smeb this split, and Smeb plays a lot more seasons. But when you look at the teams, BDD's been the clear star of his team pretty much since 2017 summer, right? When he won the MVP, then he won the MVP again. 2018, he was clearly the guy on KTrolster. Everybody else had really dropped off, but BDD was still very good. And then, sorry, that was 2019. I think I said 2018. And then this year, he's the star of gen.g again. So he's been the star for 7 splits, right? Faker, I would argue that Teddy has been the star of the team for the last couple of splits. I would argue that Clid was arguably better than. I would argue that last year Faker was probably the 3rd best player on T1. Right? I don't think there's really any argument to be made for BDD being the 3rd best player on his team. So when you look at just ring counting, Faker's won 1 more LCK title than BDD has during that time period, but BDD didn't have anybody better than him to play with.
Yeah. So one thing about BDD is his like he's easily getting the man of the match title. You know, like let's say like League of Legends as a soccer with soccer match. So
Yeah.
let's say like in every game, um like there's a man of match like
That's
guy
hard.
like yeah. So I mean like if a guy consistently gets like man of the match like awards every single time like he plays, it's no wonder that he's a great player, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean like his consistency is what I think is the best like power of BDDs.
Yeah. So you would argue that BDD's been the most consistent player over those consistent star player, because there's lots of guys who are consistently average, but the most consistent star player during that time period of the last
Yeah.
7 months.
So I personally believe the rolling the dice theory, which means rolling the dice means like taking risk. But for mid laner, it's not a good thing to roll the dice.
Not a lot of
Let's think
time.
about yeah. Let's think about Mickey. He 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 likes to roll the dice, but when mid laner gets the bad result on rolling dice, the team lose the game. So mid liner should be consistent because like it's mid liner is basically the backbone of the team, and also it's the center locating position. So it should be really strong, at least like not taken down by other mid laner. So in this regard, in at this point, BDD's consistency is a really big deal.
Yeah, you can't have a mid laner who's losing you half the games, right? Mickey's the ultimate example of that, I believe, where his record against Faker in his early years, like when he played on Rebels Anarchy, he would beat Faker all the time. And it's because he just happened to roll that 6 on the dice.
Yeah.
He would roll that 6 on the dice against Faker, and Faker was a 5 out of 10, or five, not 5 out of 10, a 5 on the dice roll every time. So Faker was just fantastic the whole time. And then suddenly Mickey would beat him. And then the next week, Mickey would go 0-6 to Kuzan. So Mickey would go 10-0 against Faker, and then the next week lose to Kuzan and get destroyed. Like, well, how does that work? Yeah, BDD is one of the ultimate examples of consistency in League of Legends history, where you can count on two hands the number of in his 400 game career, the number of actual bad performances that he's had where he's thrown the game away. And yeah, you can even see that against Chovy last split, where Chovy and BDD were the guys competing for the MVP, but BDD was the clear model of consistency the entire season, and Chovy had those games where they called him Choky because he would just throw away a big game. All of a sudden, where did Chovy go? Oh, he just didn't show up. Oh well, BDD's still here, so I guess gen.g is going to win today. Yeah, he's the absolute model of consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have too much more time left, I don't imagine. But what do you think about BDD's international career? Because that's obviously the knock against him, is that he's a domestic only player. He's had a lot of success domestically, but he hasn't really done much internationally. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I feel sad about BDD's international career. It's acting like Achilles like heel, something like his only weakness is would be international career. Like except like MSI runner-up title. Like I admit that BDD's international career is not that great, but I think there's still hope that when gen.g gets like gen.g makes it to final, world, sorry, then like gen.g might be able to get the best result. Who knows? Because like as a fan of gen.g, we trust BDD's power. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm somebody who I think that BDD's international career is pretty underrated. He's only really appeared in what two international events, right? Well, true international. I'm not going to count Rift Rivals. And actually, this mid-season cup, I would say the BDD was one of the best performers of the tournament. Obviously, Knight was the standout player, and that's kind of the the death knell for what happened in Gen G. But when you
Yeah.
look at that event, BDD was kind of the clear standout from the LCK as the guy who actually led his team to have some level of success at that event. And then when you look at his first Worlds event, so he only went to Worlds one time. That was as the champions. So the guy's never been to an international event before. He goes 6-0 in the group stage, absolutely dominates, and then gets 3-0 by Samsung, who go on to win the World Championship in the finals, where they also win 3-0. So I kind of think that's a little bit crap, because when you get beat down by the team who actually wins the whole thing and they beat down everybody, well, we don't know if you were on the other side of the bracket. Maybe if Samsung did their job and beat RNG in the group stages, and you had RNG versus Longzhu, maybe Longzhu beats RNG, then beats WE, and suddenly you have Samsung Longzhu in the finals. We don't know that. Longzhu in the group stages looked like the best team in the whole world. So it's kind of unfair to them that Samsung had a pretty good strategy for beating them. And the meta actually changed horribly with the Ardent Sensor meta, where suddenly Ruler and Core JJ got to have a lot more influence, right? So if you were a team that was entirely focused on top and mid lane, you were at a really big disadvantage, because Prey wasn't a carry player. Like, that wasn't his style. Ruler is exactly that style. So they kind of got screwed by the meta as well, where it was a really good fit for Samsung and a really bad fit for Longzhu. That's not what they want. They want a meta where they can just run Jace all day for Khan and Talia all day for BDD, and just run around and go 10-0 in the top lane, and BDD's roaming everywhere, and suddenly you team fight and you're up 20 kills to 0 and you smash them. Right? And then at MSI, they made the finals against RNG, which was, I think, I mean, for most teams, making the finals of MSI is a pretty big accomplishment. For Korea, unfortunately, because of the success of SK Telecom, we've kind of downplayed MSI finals, but it's a pretty good accomplishment for everybody else, just not Korean teams, apparently. So they made the finals, and they lost to the final form Uzi, the best performance that one of the greatest players in history had in his entire career. That's what they lost to. And if you watch those finals, probably the second best player in the finals, BDD. Uzi just dominates Prey the whole time, pillar to post. But when you watch it, BDD's in the game for the whole series, and he's quite competitive. And he's against Xiaohu, who's arguably the greatest Chinese mid laner of all time. And I have one final point on this. Perks is another guy. So Perks, the G2 AD carry now, all-time greatest Western player. I don't even really think that's up for debate at this point in time. So Perks, up until last year, had an MSI final and a World semifinal appearance on his resume, where he also was 3-0'd by the eventual champion at Worlds and got pounded. And that was his resume. He got 3-1'd by SKT in the finals of MSI, in the same way that BDD got 3-1 by RNG, an all-time great team. I would argue that 2018 RNG was a lot better than 2017 SKT, right? So we're looking at a guy who has a pretty similar resume. And in fact, because Perks played in Europe and it was a little bit less competitive for him, he was able to make a lot more international appearances, and he bombed out in the group stage multiple times at both Worlds and MSI. BDD's never bombed out in the group stage. But when I look at these two guys, I see two guys who are absolutely dominant, like young players, dominated their region. BDD's won MVPs. Perks has never been the MVP of the league, but we're the star of the best team in the league, dominated the regular season, dominated the playoffs, dominated the region, went internationally, and had mixed results. One MSI final and a World semi versus one MSI final and a World's quarterfinal that I think were pretty similar performances personally, right? It only took 1 year to absolutely change history on Perks. Perks got the other superstar of Europe to come join him, built a massive super team around him, had a fantastic 2019 where they made the World Finals and MSI, and now Perks' international career is up here. It only took 1 year. BDD can have that kind of year. Like, up until last year, I would have said that Perks and BDD had a very, very similar career, and it only just happened where Perks kind of passed him because of international results. But that doesn't mean that BDD doesn't get to have that too. Rookie, for years, never won a championship. Like he won his first championship in Korea, but he was in the LPL for years, didn't win the championship, kept winning MVPs, kept doing well in the regular season, couldn't win the championship. Right? Then he won one. He won the world championship. He was the clear best player in the world on there, the clear best player on his team. I don't know how Ning won the MVP of that, but he was clear best player on the world championship team who dominated, and suddenly the narrative of rookie changed. So you only need one big international result for most people to kind of change the narrative around them. If BDD can have, a semifinal run or a finals run this year on Gen G, I do think that'll really change the narrative. I think that his international career is really underrated because he's never
Yeah.
had a bad performance. He only went to 2 events, and he lost the champion both times. He lost to RNG, and he lost to Samsung, who won Worlds.
Yeah.
They weren't losing the bums. G2 was dropping on in group stages where they had a North American team and a wild card and still couldn't make it out of the group.
Yeah, in MSC he already proved himself that he has had an international like competence in his in his lane page, not only lane page but also like team fight level.
And they made it out of groups again.
Yeah, and one game against IG, like he used Yasuo and ended up getting like 8 or 9 kills almost, and just literally carried the game by himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look at BDD's international career, it's the exact same model of consistency that he's had in his whole career. Is BDD doesn't have bad performances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because with the fans, it seems like BDD is not allowed to have a bad performance. If you're going to say that he has a terrible international record, whose is better? Faker. Who else? There's actually not that many people with insane international records. Even Pawn only had he won the MSI as the 5th best player on EDG, and he won Worlds as the 4th best player on Samsung. What did he do outside of those 2 runs? Nothing. Right? And only 2 mid laners ever have won 2 international events. It's Faker, who's won 7? 5. Faker's won 5, won 3 Worlds and 2 MSIs, and Pawn who's won 2. Everybody else has only won 1 time. Right. So for BDD, even just to make it out of the groups every time he's been to an international event, I think says something about his consistency. In the same way that he's the guy who wins the regular season and he's the guy who wins the MVPs. He's just the model of consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you had some final thoughts on anything that you feel like we haven't really talked about with BDD, or what you want to see from him in the future, but what you expect to see from him, and what you hope to see from him one day.
I want him to keep playing Azure and Joy. And I really think being able to play Azure and Joy really well is definitely his most powerful weapon to him. And usually these champions, Azure and Joy, don't have a hard time with meta change, because Azure and Joy are really versatile champs, right?
Yeah, they have a lot of utility.
Yeah, right. So I hope he will still use these 2 characters extremely well, just like this season. So we don't expect more to BDD, because we know that BDD is doing his job perfectly. So as a fan of gen.g, we are so proud that we have such a great mid laner like BDD. Yeah, and we are cheering and we are sending a big applause to him. Yeah.
Yeah, even looking, I mean, when you actually look at the champions BDD's played in his career, it's a very similar fit, right? So his 5 most played champions are Azir, Zoe, Talia, Galio, and Ryze. Right? So all of those champions are champions that are always good. I mean, ever since they've reworked Galio, he's worked. right? I mean, he's been good since 2017, right? So all these champions have really good utility. They're very good wave clear. They're exactly the champions that you want to see BDD on. You clear mid lane, you go roam somewhere. You get to a team fight around an objective, you can make a big play. You can do a Shurima shuffle. BDD is one of the best ever at doing the insect, right? The Shurima shuffle with Azir. He's one of the
Yeah.
best elite snipers I've ever seen. He's so good with Talia walls. He's so good with Galio ult. He's so good at AoE taunting on Galio. He's a fantastic Rise player. So all of these champions have always been good. They're control mages that are never really out of meta. I think that's going to help BDD stay consistent for his whole career, unless there's a
Exactly.
drastic change in mid lane.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm glad that we got to kind of discuss who BDD is then. I think we did a pretty good review of his career, what he
Yeah.
does, who he is, how he is in reference to history. He's one of the best mid laners ever, and it seems like he's not somebody who's ever really talked about in that conversation. Right? There's Faker and Rookie, and then some people have perks up there or caps. But it's not super common that BDD really gets thrown in the conversation. I mean, a lot of people have Doinby up there without having BDD.
Yeah. Besides, because of the fact that he doesn't have any strong personality, like people kind of like underrate like his play, and people sometimes like don't pay attention to like BDD's like super play, because BDD like has been doing like his interview really humble way, like he doesn't show off his like ability, or he doesn't show up his like strong personality. He always like extends his gratitude to like teammates or like his like team members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
He's a
that's why.
very Korean player.
Yeah, he's a
He's
shy
a Korean
guy.
Korean is what he
Yeah.
is. Yeah. Yeah. When you look at somebody like the Shy on IG, he might be the most outspoken Korean player I've ever seen in my life. That guy is not Korean. I don't know. I don't care what anybody says. Like his personality is insane. Like it's so different. His ego is up here, right? Now he's got the skills to match, but somebody like BDD, you would think would have a bigger ego, right? But he seems like a very down to earth kind of player. I mean, look at Colin. Colin's ego is way bigger than BDD's,
Yeah.
right? But that's kind of the player he is. He's one of those people that you always say they quietly walk into the Hall of Fame, right? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. You know, that guy's the all-time kill leader. Didn't know that, right? Yeah. I I'm trying to find a good comparison in other sports, but I'm struggling to find somebody with the resume that BDD has that's kind of had that much of a lack of ego. Right? But he's going to go down as the all-time player of the game leader. He might win his fourth MVP straight up. Actually, I mean, he's at least going to be the player of the game champion, but he might even win the MVP this season as well. He's already the all-time MVP leader because he's the only three-time MVP in LCK history. All right, he's going to quietly walk into the Hall of Fame. Nobody's been talking about him that much, but he's going to break half the records in the league.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Yeah. He's definitely a king of regular season. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he might be. And the thing is, that's the test of regular season, too. So playoffs test clutchness and how you can do with a lot of preparation for one specific opponent. And regular season tests consistency and at day-to-day level. How good can you be every single day of the year? Right? And
Yeah.
when you look at it, BDD might be the greatest regular season player of all time.
Yeah.
At least in the LCK, he might be the greatest regular season player ever.
He he hasn't been suffered from up and downs, because he hasn't been he has only been having up and ups.
Yeah.
Yeah. That means his high level of consistency makes him really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how in a couple of years Showmaker and Chovy kind of match up to him later. But right now, even if you can argue, I mean, they're really the same level of player right now. I would say they're all A1, AB, AC. Like they're all very equal. All right. or 1A, 1B, 1C, not AC. Yeah, so they're all kind of like the tier 1 guys that are pretty interchangeable right now, and they're quite a bit younger than him, so we'll see in a few years how they stack up. But really, he's got a couple of years ahead of these guys. He's actually won championships. Showmaker and Shobi haven't. Right? And outside of Faker, BDD's the only mid laner to win 2 championships in LCK.
Yeah, right.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where BDD goes. I'm really glad that we got to talk about him as a player. Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I always cheer for BDD's success, and I think gen.g might be able to get the best result that they want. So yeah, let's go gen.g.
Yeah. So
BDD.
do you think that BDD is going to Worlds this year? You think it's going to be in the you think they're going to be a top 3?
Yeah, we will destroy T1 and move our way to
There we
world.
go. I like the
Yeah.
confidence. I mean, I saw that last best of 5. But...
Yeah, we have BDD. We have BDD.
Yeah.
I have no worries. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So if that's all, I think I'll stop the recording. Thank you to anybody who's watching episode 1 of LexTalk League of Legends. BDD.
BDD.
Who is he in history? Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.